35%. That's how much oxygen once filled Earth's air. Not 21 like today, 35. The entire planet breathing faster than it does now. If you lit a campfire in that world, it wouldn't flicker and crackle. It would roar like a rocket. Trees that stood 100 feet tall could ignite from a single spark. And yet, life didn't just survive. It exploded. Insects the size of hawks, millipedes longer than a car, forests so dense and wet they trapped carbon faster than the planet could release it. Imagine taking a deep breath and feeling energy surge through your body, every cell working twice as hard because the air itself is fuel. That was the Carboniferous world, around 300 million years ago, a time when the planet's heartbeat ran faster and every breath could start a fire. If you're listening to this while falling asleep, that's kind of the point. So, maybe subscribe and tell me where you are. I read the comments, and it's wild. Tokyo at sunrise, London in the rain, Chicago in the dark. All of us, breathing the same thin 21% air, wondering what it must have felt like to live on a planet that burned a little brighter with every breath. Imagine striking a spark and watching it explode into a firestorm. The flame doesn't creep along the wood, it devours it. Every breath of air feeds it like gasoline. The world around you feels alive, buzzing, electric, too full of something invisible. That something is oxygen, and 35% of the atmosphere is made of it. On this version of Earth, fire isn't just an accident, it's a force of nature that rules everything. If you were dropped into the Carboniferous world, roughly 320 million years ago, the first thing you'd notice is how heavy the air feels. Breathing would be easy, too easy. You'd feel a rush of energy in every cell, like your blood was turbocharged. Every heartbeat, every movement, every spark of thought would feel superpowered but dangerous. Oxygen gives life, but too much of it is like standing too close to a star. The forests stretch forever. Trees taller than buildings rise from endless swamps. Their bark gleams slick with moisture, their roots sunk deep into dark, steaming mud. The air is thick with spores, not pollen. There are no flowers yet, just ferns, horsetails, and massive club mosses growing in tight ranks, forming green cathedrals. The sunlight above struggles to break through. When it does, it filters down in pale, dusty beams. The soundscape is alien. Wings buzz like tiny engines. The air vibrates with the hum of creatures that shouldn't exist. Insects the size of birds, their translucent wings flashing in the light. Every movement leaves a shimmer in the mist. It's beautiful, but it's also dangerous. A single lightning strike could turn this paradise into an inferno. With so much oxygen, flames spread faster than anything modern humans have ever seen. They climb trees like ladders, leap across rivers, and sweep through miles of forest in minutes. Afterward, the land smokes for days. The smell of ash and life mingle until it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. Fire has become part of the ecosystem. Plants evolve to grow quickly after burns. Some even depend on fire to spread. It's an endless cycle of growth, destruction, and rebirth. Every creature that lives here has to respect the flame or die. But oxygen doesn't just shape fire. It changes the rules of biology. With so much of it in the air, breathing becomes almost effortless. Insects and amphibians grow massive. A dragonfly spreads wings a meter wide. Millipedes longer than a man's arm crawl through the undergrowth. The atmosphere itself gives them permission to be giants. Even the water feels different. Oxygen seeps into every swamp and river, creating a strange, electric kind of abundance. Decay is slow. Dead plants pile up layer after layer, forming the coal that will one day fuel the human age. Right now, though, it's all life. Life turned up too high. The Carboniferous world is wild, vivid, overclocked. It's a planet breathing too fast, a living engine running on high-octane air. Every sound, every spark, every heartbeat echoes with energy. And though this world burned easily, It burned beautifully. Close your eyes and step through the time gate. The world around you dissolves into mist and heat until the air smells of wet soil and thunder. You are standing 320 million years in the past, in what scientists call the late Carboniferous. The continents are locked together near the equator, forming a single massive belt of steaming swamps and tangled forests. The air is thick enough to taste. Every breath feels like drinking warm fog. The sky is a dull copper color, heavy with clouds that never seem to clear. Rain falls almost every day, feeding rivers that snake across the land like veins. Lightning flickers on the horizon. You can hear distant cracks of thunder echoing through endless trees. This is a planet in overdrive, one that never quite sleeps. All around you, the forest rises like a living wall. Towering lycopsids stretch more than 100 feet tall. Their trunks are straight and smooth, banded with scars where leaves once grew. Their roots spread wide across the ground, gripping the earth like giant hands. Between them, huge horsetails and seed ferns grow in thick layers, weaving a green maze that blots out the Sunday. The air is humid, dense, and rich with oxygen, almost 40% higher than in your world. It makes every creature here breathe faster, move faster, live faster. The sound of life is constant. Water drips from every leaf. Frogs croak with deep, hollow voices. Insects hum and clatter, their wings slicing through the air like miniature engines. When one passes too close, you feel the wind of its wings against your face. There are no birds yet, no mammals, no flowers. Just the raw pulse of an ancient earth still learning what it means to live. Beneath your feet, the ground is spongy. Each step sinks slightly into a thick mat of decaying plants. Layers of fallen leaves, roots, and bark pile up endlessly, never fully rotting because the air is so wet. This is the beginning of coal, millions of years before humans will dig it up and burn it. Every footprint you leave presses into the future. Sometimes the ground trembles. Far away, something massive moves through the swamp. It could be an early amphibian, its body glistening with moisture, sliding between pools. Or maybe it is one of the first reptiles, smaller, sleeker, testing the edges of a new world where water no longer rules everything. The continents themselves are alive with movement. Mountains rise where tectonic plates collide. Rivers twist and flood, carving new paths through the endless forest. Volcanoes breathe smoke into the already heavy air. It is a world balanced on the edge of chaos, where every storm, every fire, every new life reshapes the land. If you could stand here long enough, you would see the slow-motion birth of the modern world. The Carboniferous is not just another chapter in Earth's history. It is the moment when the planet learned to breathe deeply, and that deep breath changed everything. Breathe in. The air feels thicker, almost syrupy, like every inhale carries more life than it should. In this world, with 35% oxygen, breathing is effortless, even addictive. Your lungs pull in the air, and it floods your blood faster than you can process. Every heartbeat delivers a surge of energy. Muscles twitch, thoughts sharpen. Your entire body hums with invisible power. Oxygen isn't just part of the air here. It's the fuel that drives everything into overdrive. On modern Earth, oxygen makes up about 21% of the atmosphere, but here it's nearly double that. It changes the physics of life. Fire burns hotter, faster, brighter. A fallen branch can burst into flame from a stray spark. Even damp wood smoulders, feeding on air so rich that combustion feels inevitable. Lightning doesn't just flash across the sky. It ignites whole forests. Every storm leaves behind smoking horizons. This is a world where air itself is both life and weapon. But oxygen does more than light up the landscape. It reshapes the living things that breathe it. With so much oxygen available, animals can grow larger, move faster, and recover from exhaustion almost instantly. Metabolism runs in the fast lane. Every cell works overtime. Insects, which rely on passive breathing through tiny tubes called spiracles, thrive in this atmosphere. With oxygen diffusing so easily through their bodies, they no longer face the limits that keep modern insects small. That's why dragonflies the size of hawks rule the skies, and millipedes longer than humans crawl through the undergrowth. It's not just size, it's speed. Movement in this world feels amplified. Wings beat harder, muscles contract quicker. The air itself offers more lift, more drag, a heavier texture that makes flight smoother but takes more strength to master. Even the sound of the forest is different. Each buzz and click seems louder because sound waves travel better through dense air. The environment feels alive, vibrating with its own rhythm. Plants, too, respond to the abundance. They photosynthesize like factories, pumping oxygen back into the sky faster than the planet can balance it. The forests become engines of air production, building an atmosphere that feeds itself. But such power comes with danger. Too much oxygen isn't just good for fire, it's toxic in high doses. For living cells, it's both a gift and a poison. Extra oxygen can damage DNA, stress the body, and burn from within. Life here walks a narrow path between thriving and breaking down. To survive, creatures evolve powerful antioxidants and defenses against their own metabolism. They are living machines tuned to perfection, their biology built for endurance in an oxygen-rich world. If you were to stand here, modern lungs would feel overwhelmed. You'd feel dizzy at first, then light-headed, as your blood chemistry spun out of balance. For you, this air would be too much. But for the life that belongs here, it's everything. The planet is breathing hard, and every heartbeat of life keeps pace. The sky flashes white, and the world catches fire. One lightning strike and the forest roars to life, flames racing across the swamp like living things. In this oxygen-heavy world, there is no hesitation. Damp leaves, soaked bark, even wet soil ignite like dry tinder. The air itself seems to feed the blaze, fanning every ember into a storm of heat and light. The Carboniferous Earth is a planet balanced on a fuse, and every thunderstorm threatens to light it. Fire here isn't rare or tragic, it's routine. It's part of the rhythm of life. The same way we mark seasons by rain or snow, the creatures of this world know the season of fire. When the air dries just enough and lightning splits the sky, the forest burns. The flames move fast, faster than anything in our time. In moments, trees that took centuries to grow are swallowed by firestorms that can stretch for miles. Ash falls like snow, smoke clouds the horizon. The sound is endless, a deep crackling roar that echoes through the dense, humid air. But out of destruction comes renewal. The plants here have adapted to live with fire as a constant neighbour. Some of them grow thick bark that chars on the outside, but keeps the core alive. Others drop spores that only open after heat, using the flames to spread. Within weeks of a burn, green shoots push through blackened soil, reclaiming the land with impossible speed. Life has learned to rise from its own ashes. Even the animals have adapted to the fire season. Amphibians hide in mud pools and underground burrows, waiting for the smoke to fade. Giant insect scents changes in pressure before the first spark and take to the air, fleeing the wave of heat that follows. For them, survival depends on knowing when to move and when to hide. The entire ecosystem breathes in rhythm with the fire. Charcoal becomes a natural layer in the ground, sealing ancient carbon beneath the surface. Each burn builds new soil, trapping nutrients that fuel the next generation of forests. Over millions of years, this cycle of burning and regrowth creates the vast coal deposits that will one day power human industry. It's a slow alchemy of death into energy, chaos into creation. Yet, even in all its destruction, there's beauty in the blaze. Imagine standing at the edge of a burning forest at night. The flames reflect in pools of black water, sparks rising into the thick smoke like glowing insects. The air shimmers with heat. You can feel the planet exhale. It's dangerous, but also alive. Fire doesn't just consume here, it transforms. Every living thing, from the tallest trees to the smallest creatures, carries the memory of flame in its DNA. This is a world that burns, rebuilds, and burns again. A planet that learned long ago that sometimes destruction is just another form of life. The forest feels endless. You step into it, and the light fades almost instantly. Towering trunks rise on every side, straight and smooth like pillars in a cathedral. Their tops vanish into a green haze of leaves and spores. The air smells of damp earth and slow decay. Every surface is slick with moisture. This is the Carboniferous world, the age of the cathedral forests, where plants ruled the land and everything else lived in their shadow. The trees here are unlike anything that exists today. Lycopsids, the giant ancestors of club mosses, dominate the landscape. Some stretch more than 100 feet into the air, their trunks covered in diamond-shaped scars where leaves once grew. Their roots spread wide across the soft ground, forming tangled webs that knit the swamps together. Around them grow thick stands of horsetails, each one as tall as a person, their stems jointed and hollow like living bamboo. Between them, seed ferns fill the spaces, spreading broad fronds that capture every flicker of light that filters through the canopy. The forest floor is dim, shadowed, and heavy with fog. Every breath feels thick and sweet, full of spores drifting like invisible dust. Sunlight rarely touches the ground. When it does, it appears as faint beams of gold cutting through the gloom. Beneath your feet, the earth is soft and springy, a mat of dead leaves, fallen trunks, and rotting roots. You sink slightly with each step. In this oxygen-rich world, decay happens slowly. The air is too wet, too dense, for most fungi and bacteria to keep up. Layer after layer of dead plants build up faster than they can rot. Over millions of years, these layers will compress into coal, preserving the ghosts of these forests deep underground. Every log you pass is the beginning of a future energy source. The silence here is deceptive. The forest is alive with sound, just hidden beneath the surface. You can hear the whisper of insects' wings, the drip of water falling from leaves, the faint hiss of gas bubbles escaping the swamp. Somewhere nearby, a giant millipede moves through the ferns, its many legs clicking softly on the wet ground. Occasionally, the stillness breaks when a tree collapses, its massive trunk splashing into the murky water below. The impact echoes for miles before fading back into the steady hum of the forest. These green skyscrapers are more than plants. They are machines, photosynthetic engines pulling carbon from the air and locking it into wood and bark. The planet breathes through them. The more they grow, the more oxygen they release, fueling the fiery atmosphere that defines this age. It's a perfect cycle of creation and destruction, beauty and danger. Standing here feels like standing inside the lungs of the world. The cathedral forests built the foundation for the modern Earth. Every spark that lights a fire, every engine that burns fuel, every breath you take, carries the memory of these towering giants. This is where it all began. The first thing you notice is the air. It presses against your skin like warm silk, heavy and damp, carrying the smell of wet bark and slow decay. Every breath feels thick, tasting faintly of metal and moss. You can almost drink it. This is the world of the Carboniferous swamps, a planet wrapped in green and mist, where daylight struggles to reach the ground. The sun hangs high above the canopy, but here below it's always twilight. Shafts of golden light cut through the fog, falling like spotlights on pools of black water. Every drop that falls from the leaves lands with a soft plop, sending rings across the still surface. The sound never stops. It's the heartbeat of the swamp. Nothing in this world is dry. Water clings to everything. It gathers in the creases of giant fern fronds, runs in rivulets down the trunks of lycopsid trees, and drips endlessly from tangled vines. Even the ground feels alive, soft and spongy beneath your feet, made of countless layers of decaying plants. Every step sinks slightly, releasing a faint hiss of trapped air and the smell of rot. This place is a living factory of life and death. Spores drift through the air like invisible dust. They coat every surface, floating in the beams of sunlight like glittering particles. There are no flowers here, no colourful petals or buzzing bees. The plants reproduce by releasing billions of microscopic spores, and the entire forest breathes them in. When you inhale, you are breathing the next generation of the forest itself. The light here plays tricks on the eyes. Everything glows faintly green. The canopy filters sunlight through countless leaves, tinting the world in shades of emerald and jade. Shadows move slowly as clouds drift across the sky, and every ripple of wind turns the mist into a living dance of colour. It feels like being inside a dream, one that never fully wakes. The creatures that live here move like ghosts. Giant dragonflies skim the water's surface, their wings whispering as they hunt for prey. Amphibians slip quietly between roots, their slick skin shining in the dim light. Sometimes, a ripple breaks the water where something large moves beneath the surface, then fades again into silence. The swamp hides more than it reveals. Even the air hums with mystery. In this oxygen-rich world, every breath is fuel, every spark of energy amplified. Plants grow faster, thicker, stronger. The air itself seems alive, feeding the pulse of everything within it. You can almost feel the forest breathing around you, slow and steady, as if the whole planet is inhaling. Time moves differently here. Days blur together in mist and rain, and nights feel like deeper shades of the same twilight. This isn't just a forest. It's an atmosphere turned into a world, a humid cradle where evolution experiments without limits. To walk through it is to step into the lungs of the ancient earth, where life first learned to thrive in the shadows. The air trembles with wings. A deep buzzing fills the swamp, echoing between the towering trees like the hum of distant engines. Something flashes through the mist above you, quick as lightning, then another, larger, slower, gliding like a bird but with 4 glassy wings that shimmer in the filtered light. It's not a bird at all. It's a dragonfly the size of a hawk, a griffinfly, the apex predator of the Carboniferous sky. Its wings stretch nearly 1 meter across, each beat slicing through the dense oxygen-rich air. Below, smaller insects scatter, sensing the vibrations of death in motion. This is their age, the reign of arthropods, when the insects ruled the world. The high oxygen of this time is their secret. Insects breathe through tiny holes along their bodies, not lungs like ours. Normally, that system limits how big they can grow, but in an atmosphere where oxygen makes up 35% of the air, their bodies can support sizes that seem impossible. What you see flying above the swamps are not the small buzzing creatures we know today. They are giants. Imagine a centipede, the length of a small car crawling through leaf litter, its legs clattering softly on damp soil. Imagine scorpions the size of cats stalking through the shadows. Every inch of the forest floor moves with chitin and legs. The sound is constant, a symphony of scraping, clicking, and fluttering. Mayflies swarm in clouds, so thick they look like moving fog. They rise from the black water in waves, covering the sky in a haze of motion. When they die, their bodies fall like rain, feeding the swamp and everything in it. It's a world that hums, twitches, and crawls, powered by air that supercharges life itself. Above the canopy, the griffinfly hunts without mercy. Its compound eyes catch every flicker of movement, its jaws built to crush and tear. When it strikes, it's over in seconds. the victim vanishes mid-air, shredded and devoured before it even hits the ground. Each predator here is a specialist, each adapted perfectly to its role in this oxygen-fueled ecosystem. The insects dominate not just by size but by sheer numbers. They fill every niche. Some glide through the mist, feeding on spores and rot. Others live inside decaying logs, carving tunnels through the wood. Even the water teems with insect larvae, breathing through delicate filaments and waiting for their chance to take to the air. The entire swamp is alive with motion, the air itself thick with wings. For hundreds of millions of years, before birds, before mammals, before even the dinosaurs, insects were the masters of the sky and soil. They built the first airborne empires, using the planet's oxygen overload as their advantage. Standing here, surrounded by the endless hum of wings, you can almost feel the pulse of evolution accelerating. The world belongs to the insects, and they wear their crown proudly. The ground shakes before you even see it. A soft, rhythmic tremor passes through the damp soil, followed by a low rustling sound, like rain moving through leaves. Then, from the fog ahead, something massive emerges. Its body ripples as it moves, a dark, armored shape gliding between the roots. This is Arthropleura, the titan millipede, one of the largest land invertebrates to ever exist. It stretches more than 2 meters long, longer than a human is tall, and its body is covered in overlapping plates of armor that glint faintly in the half-light. Each segment moves in perfect rhythm with the next, hundreds of legs working together in a hypnotic wave. You can hear the faint click of its limbs as it passes over fallen logs and soft mud. It doesn't move fast, but it doesn't need to. In this ancient world of towering plants and thick air, nothing hunts a creature this large. Arthropleura is an herbivore, a slow-moving giant that feeds on the endless litter of the forest floor. It drags its heavy body through layers of decaying leaves, using its mandibles to scoop up damp vegetation and rotting wood. Every bite releases the smell of earth and sap. With every meal, it helps recycle the forest's waste back into the soil. It is the quiet engine of the swamp, the recycler of life. The world it moves through is built for giants. Lycopsid trees rise like living towers, their roots curling above the water like massive wooden bridges. Between them, ferns spread wide enough to form walls of green. The air is heavy with spores and mist, the ground a soft carpet of decay. In this dim, oxygen-rich world, Arthropleura thrives. The same atmosphere that fuels the giant insects also powers its enormous body. Its breathing tubes carry oxygen deep into its tissues, feeding muscles that move with slow, deliberate power. The creature glides through the forest like a living train, its many legs lifting and falling in a rhythm older than memory. Occasionally, it stops, raising its head slightly to taste the air with its antennae. Its eyes are small, simple, sensing motion and light but not detail. It doesn't need precision to survive. Its armor is its protection. Predators are rare, and few can pierce the thick plates that cover its back. When danger does approach, the titan millipede doesn't fight. It curls slightly, pressing its armored segments together like a shield. Then it waits, patient and immovable, until the threat passes. Overhead, the forest creaks and whispers. The sound of water dripping from leaves echoes like slow rain. The air hums with the faint buzz of distant wings. Life moves at a steady pace here, driven by moisture, heat, and the endless cycle of growth and decay. When Arthropleura finally disappears into the mist, only the tracks remain, long parallel lines pressed into the soft soil. They mark the path of a creature that once ruled the forest floor, a gentle titan in a world built for giants. The forest floor is never still. Beneath the damp leaves, under fallen logs and roots, something moves. You hear it before you see it, the faint scrape of claws against bark, the whisper of legs gliding over wet soil. Then, from the shadows, it steps into the light. A scorpion, enormous, its armored body glistening in the humid air. Its claws open and close with slow precision, each motion deliberate and silent. Its tail curls above its back, ending in a stinger long enough to pierce through bone. In this world, venom is power, and chitin is armor. This is the Carboniferous Age, when oxygen fills the air like fuel and arthropods dominate the land. The scorpion's body shines like polished obsidian. Every segment of its exoskeleton is thick, built to withstand the bite and claw of other hunters. When it moves, it seems more like a machine than an animal, powered by the invisible force of the high oxygen atmosphere. Every breath that seeps through its spiracles floods its body with energy, fueling speed, strength, and the reflexes of a born predator. The same air that lets dragonflies grow to the size of hawks also gives these creatures an edge. They can move faster, strike harder, and heal quicker, but their greatest weapon is silence. The swamp is full of creatures that can kill, and survival depends on stealth. The scorpion's movements are smooth and soundless, its color blending perfectly with the wet soil and dark roots. It hunts by vibration, sensing the faintest tremors in the ground. When prey comes near, there's no warning. The tail strikes once, quick and precise. The venom flows, shutting down muscles in seconds. The forest's smaller hunters are just as dangerous. Giant centipedes prowl the undergrowth, their bodies long and flexible, each leg tipped with a claw. Their fangs inject venom that paralyzes insects many times their size. Even the air above is a battlefield. Predatory dragonflies patrol the misty canopy, diving at smaller flyers with unerring aim. Their jaws snap shut like traps, crushing wings and skulls in a single bite. Every creature here is designed by oxygen and pressure, their bodies tuned to the rhythm of this hypercharged planet. But life in the Carboniferous isn't just about killing, it's also about surviving the hunt. Armor and venom evolve together in an endless race. Some insects grow shells so thick that only the strongest jaws can pierce them. Others develop chemical defenses, spraying noxious fumes that burn and blind. Even small creatures learn to mimic the color of bark and leaves, disappearing into the background. The balance between predator and prey is delicate, but it keeps the ecosystem alive. In this world, strength isn't enough. Speed, stealth, and adaptation rule. Every motion, every twitch of a claw or beat of a wing is a gamble between life and death. The forest hums with that tension. Venom and chitin define it, shaping a world where survival belongs to those who evolve faster than the flame that breathes through the air around them. The water is dark and still, reflecting the green haze of the forest above. Beneath the surface, shapes move slowly, their bodies gliding through the black water like shadows. A massive head breaks the surface for a moment, jaws wide enough to swallow a small animal, then sinks again without a ripple. This is the age of the amphibian empires, when creatures half fish and half reptile ruled the swamps. They are called temnospondyls, ancestors of modern frogs and salamanders, but these aren't small or harmless. Some stretch longer than a man, their bodies armoured with ridged skin, their eyes fixed high on their skulls to watch the world above the waterline. In this ancient world, the oxygen-rich air fuels both danger and life. The swamps are thick with it, feeding plants that stretch hundreds of feet into the air and creatures that grow larger than evolution will ever allow again. Amphibians thrive here, using lungs and skin to breathe. They don't need to choose between water and air. They take both. When they slide onto land, their wet skin glistens in the mist, absorbing oxygen directly from the air. But their freedom comes with chains. They can't stray far from the water, or their skin will dry and crack. Every step away from the swamp is a risk, so they remain close, guardians of the shallows, rulers of rivers that twist like dark veins through the endless green. The air hums with insects, and the water ripples constantly as dragonfly nymphs rise to the surface. The amphibians wait, motionless, blending into the mud. When prey passes too close, there's no sound, just an explosion of motion. The jaws close in an instant, the surface breaks, and then silence again. Their lives are a balance of patience and precision. Some species grow small and nimble, darting between roots and fallen logs. Others become giants, slow and powerful, hunting like crocodiles, their heads resting just above the water as they watch. Their skin is patterned in dark greens and blacks, perfect camouflage for a world of shadow. The young live entirely in the water, breathing through gills until they grow strong enough for air. The adults carry both worlds within them, but they can never fully escape the one they came from. The swamps belong to them, but the land beyond waits for something new, something with tougher skin and stronger lungs. The first reptiles are beginning to appear, tiny creatures with scaled armor and eggs that can survive without water. They don't know it yet, but they are the future. For now, the amphibians still reign. Their empire stretches across continents, from river deltas to flooded forests. They are the bridge between water and land, between old life and new. When they rise to the surface and gulp the heavy air, you can almost feel the world changing with them. They are the keepers of an ancient breath, the last rulers of a planet that still belongs to the swamp. The rain has stopped, and steam rises from the forest floor. Pools of black water ripple softly under the weight of fallen leaves. From the edge of one pool, a small creature climbs out, its claws gripping the wet bark of a log. Its skin glistens, but unlike the amphibians that rule these swamps, it doesn't glisten with slime. It's dry, tough, armored against the air. This is something new. The first reptile. It's small, no bigger than a modern lizard, but it carries within it one of the most important inventions in the history of life, the amniote egg. For the first time, a creature can lay its young on land without needing to return to the water. Inside that fragile shell is freedom. The embryo is protected, cushioned, and fed by layers that keep it safe from drying out. It's a portable swamp, a tiny world of moisture sealed inside a shell, and it changes everything. Around 315 million years ago, evolution quietly rewrote the rules. Before this, every creature with lungs still had to bow to the water. Eggs needed to stay wet, skins needed to breathe. The swamps were the heart of life. But now, with waterproof skin and self-contained eggs, reptiles could explore the edges of the map, moving into drier lands where no amphibian could survive. The first of them were cautious explorers, hugging the damp borders of the forest, slipping between ferns and roots. They fed on insects, small amphibians, and anything they could catch. Their bodies were built for stealth, low to the ground, tails sweeping behind them as they moved. Their scales shimmered faintly in the filtered light, each one a tiny armor plate against the heat and the dry air. To them, the world must have seemed endless. Every patch of dry land was new territory, every stretch of dirt a frontier waiting to be claimed. Their senses were sharp, their movements quiet, their hunger constant. In the air, giant dragonflies drifted above the canopy, and from the swamps, the deep calls of ancient amphibians echoed like distant drums. The reptiles kept their distance, cautious but determined. Each step away from the water was a victory written into their DNA. Over generations, they spread further, adapting to places the old rulers of the swamps could never reach. They became faster, tougher, and more efficient at conserving water. Some grew larger, others smaller, but all of them carried the same secret weapon inside their eggs. The swamp had birthed them, but it no longer defined them. They were children of two worlds, and their future belonged to the land. From these small creatures would come the ancestors of dinosaurs, birds, and mammals. The air was still heavy, the forests still thick, but the balance of power had shifted. The amphibian empires were beginning to fade. The reptiles, with their dry skins and sealed eggs, had found the key to survival. Life had taken its first true step away from the water, and the world would never be the same. The air in the Carboniferous world was heavier than ours, thicker and rich with oxygen. It wrapped around everything like an invisible ocean, dense enough that even the smallest motion stirred it into waves. In this atmosphere, flight wasn't just possible, it was powerful. The skies above the ancient forests were alive with movement, ruled not by birds, but by insects the size of hawks. The giants of the air, the griffinflies, soared effortlessly over the endless green. Their wings stretched more than a meter across, shimmering like stained glass as they caught the filtered sunlight. They were hunters, precise and unstoppable, built by evolution to dominate the sky. In modern times, a creature that size would struggle to fly. Our thin air would drag it down. But 35% oxygen changed everything. The dense atmosphere gave lift where there should have been none. Each beat of a wing pushed against heavier air, creating more force with less effort. It's the same reason hot air balloons rise faster in thick mist, or how airplanes climb easier at sea level than at high altitude. The world itself was helping them stay aloft. Oxygen also supercharged their metabolism. Every wing beat, every muscle contraction, every strike mid-air burned fuel faster than ever before, and the air provided plenty to replace it. These insects weren't clumsy giants. They were aerial athletes, their reflexes sharpened by oxygen-rich blood and fast nerves. The griffinflies hunted smaller insects, swooping through the misty canopy in bursts of speed that looked like flashes of light. When they struck, it was instant. Their compound eyes saw movement in every direction, tracking prey with uncanny precision. Once locked on, there was no escape. Their jaws were blades, their wings like silent knives, cutting through air that carried every vibration. Below them, the forest was a maze of green. Rising heat from the swamps created swirling air currents that lifted spores and dust into the sky. The insects used these invisible rivers like highways, gliding for long distances without flapping once. To fly here was to ride the breath of the planet itself. Every breeze carried life, every updraft a new opportunity. But the same air that made flight easy also made fire constant. Lightning storms and spontaneous ignitions sent waves of smoke into the atmosphere, creating obstacles for even the most skilled flyers. Some species learned to avoid these zones entirely, while others used the heat from fires to climb higher and faster. The ecosystem above the canopy was a different world from the one below. A sky full of predators and prey, locked in a silent, endless chase. Looking up, you would see motion everywhere, flickers of wings, flashes of colour, the constant hum of life in motion. This was the first true air age, a time when the sky itself was an ecosystem. The giants could fly because the world let them, because the air was alive enough to hold them. And for millions of years, before birds and bats and anything with feathers, they ruled it completely. Imagine living in a world where every breath hits like a shot of adrenaline. The air is so rich with oxygen that it feels like energy itself. Muscles twitch with power. Hearts beat faster. Everything moves, grows, and burns at double speed. That is the gift and the curse of the Carboniferous world. With 35% oxygen filling the sky, life runs on overdrive. The benefits are easy to see. Creatures grow enormous. Insects and amphibians become giants because their cells are flooded with oxygen. Their muscles recover in seconds, their reflexes sharpen, and their movements seem almost supernatural. The forests buzz and crawl with life that never seems to tire. Oxygen supercharges metabolism, letting animals move faster and stay active longer. The plants benefit too. They grow taller and denser, feeding off the same rich air that fuels everything else. The entire planet feels alive, as if the world itself is breathing faster. But this abundance comes with a hidden cost. Too much oxygen isn't always a blessing. Deep inside cells, oxygen reacts with the molecules of life, tearing at DNA, damaging proteins, and burning through tissues like acid. It's called oxidative stress, and it's the dark side of this overpowered world. Every breath carries the potential to give life and destroy it at the same time. For creatures of this era, survival depends on balance. Their cells evolve powerful defenses. Special enzymes sweep through like cleanup crews, neutralizing the toxic byproducts of too much oxygen. Antioxidants form the body's invisible armor, blocking chemical sparks before they can cause harm. These biological shields are what keep life from burning itself out. Evolution favors those who can walk the line between power and destruction. In this world, every heartbeat is a gamble. The oxygen-rich air pushes metabolism to its limit, turning creatures into high-performance machines. But high performance always means higher risk. Some species burn bright and fast, living short, intense lives. Others slow their metabolism just enough to survive longer, adapting in subtle ways that trade speed for safety. It's a delicate dance between fire and endurance. The same forces that fuel enormous insects and towering plants also test their limits. The forests themselves are proof of this balance. Too much growth leads to more dead matter, and more dead matter means more fuel for fire. When lightning strikes, the planet resets the cycle with flames, returning carbon to the sky and thinning out the chaos. The ecosystem breathes in oxygen and exhales fire. In this world, energy is everywhere, but stability is rare. The creatures that live here are tuned to perfection, their biology stretched to the edge of what's possible. They are living engines, powered by an atmosphere that could both sustain and destroy them. The Carboniferous Earth teaches a hard truth. Even the gift of breath can be dangerous when the world gives you too much of it. Life here races at its metabolic redline, always a heartbeat away from burning out completely. The Carboniferous world runs like a movie stuck on fast forward. Everything grows too quickly, moves too fast, and dies too soon. In an atmosphere thick with oxygen, energy flows through the ecosystem like lightning through a wire. Every creature, from the smallest insect to the largest amphibian, lives on the edge of hunger. The food web here isn't slow and steady like in later ages. It's a race, a constant battle of speed, growth, and reaction. The predators are relentless. Giant dragonflies patrol the skies, scanning the mist for movement. When they spot prey, they dive like arrows, their wings slicing through dense air with terrifying precision. Below them, amphibians lurk in the shallows, their eyes just above the water, waiting for the slightest ripple that signals food. Every twitch, every motion, could be the last mistake a smaller creature ever makes. But the prey isn't helpless. It's evolving just as fast. Insects mature quickly, growing from larvae to adults in record time. Their wings develop sooner, their reflexes sharpen. The cycle from birth to death compresses into months instead of years. Each generation adapts faster than the one before it, building defenses, camouflage, and escape tactics that constantly push predators to improve. It's an arms race that never ends. Speed becomes the most valuable weapon. In the water, fish-like amphibians dart between roots, using bursts of muscle powered by oxygen-rich blood. On land, reptiles scurry through ferns, relying on quick legs and sharper senses to avoid becoming someone else's meal. Even plants join the race, spreading spores faster and wider to claim more ground before fire or herbivores take it away. Everything in this ecosystem is connected through urgency. Nothing lasts long, but everything grows back faster. The forests thrive because death feeds life. When a creature dies, its body returns to the swamp, where bacteria and fungi slowly break it down. The nutrients sink into the soil, feeding the roots of trees that stretch higher every year. The predators feed the prey, and the prey feed the plants. It's a loop that moves like clockwork, accelerated by air that never seems to rest. But this fast-paced world has consequences. The creatures that live here don't have the luxury of long lives or slow evolution. They exist in a constant state of pressure, adapting or dying within a few generations. It's survival at the speed of thought. Every failure, every weakness is erased almost immediately. The Carboniferous is a world of extremes, a testing ground for what life can handle when the environment turns the dial all the way up. Looking at it from above, the forest seems calm, peaceful even, but beneath that still green canopy is a world in motion. It's a living storm of teeth, claws, and instinct where every moment matters. The food web isn't just a system here, it's a battlefield of evolution running in real time, and only the fastest survive long enough to see the next sunrise. The Carboniferous sky is never quiet. The air is too heavy, too full of moisture and charge to ever rest. Across the horizon, thunderheads tower like mountains, their dark shapes lit from within by flashes of silver light. The atmosphere itself seems alive, breathing, twisting, and building pressure until the heavens explode. Lightning dances across the equator in endless storms that turn night into day. This is the planet's pulse, a world powered by thunder. The heat of the swamps feeds the clouds. Every day, water rises from the endless forests in shimmering waves, thickening the sky until it can't hold another drop. When it breaks, the rain falls in sheets so heavy it blurs the line between land and air. Rivers overflow, swamps deepen, and the sound of rain becomes constant. In this oxygen-rich world, the air crackles with static. Every flash of lightning ignites something new. Fires burst to life miles away from where the storm began, spreading fast through the forest before the next downpour smothers them again. It's a repeating cycle of water and flame, creation and destruction. To live here is to adapt to sudden catastrophe. The creatures of this world know the signs. When the air thickens and the wind stills, the forest holds its breath. Amphibians slip into deeper water. Insects vanish beneath leaves and logs. Even the mighty lycopsid trees seem to brace themselves. Then the wind returns, fast and violent, bending trunks and scattering spores into the air. The storm's arrival is deafening. Thunder rolls like the voice of the planet itself, echoing through valleys and swamps. Raindrops, the size of pebbles, strike leaves and bark, filling the air with a sound like constant applause. Lightning splits the canopy, striking trees that explode in bursts of steam and fire. For a few terrifying moments, the entire world glows. But this chaos is necessary. The storms feed the planet, pulling nutrients from the air, shaking loose debris that will rot and nourish new growth. Rainwater carries minerals through the soil, spreading life as easily as it spreads destruction. Every storm leaves behind both ashes and opportunity. The forest rises from both. The constant cycle of heat, water, and lightning makes the Carboniferous Earth one of the most dynamic periods in history. The climate shifts daily, from blistering humidity to violent tempests. It's unpredictable, unstable, and alive. But in that chaos, evolution thrives. Creatures adapt to weather that changes in an instant. Plants grow thicker bark and deeper roots to survive the battering. Amphibians and reptiles develop instincts that warn them of pressure changes before the first rumble of thunder. For them, survival means listening to the heartbeat of the storm. Above it all, the atmosphere glows faintly at night with the shimmer of ionized air, a reminder of the energy that fills this world. The Carboniferous planet is a forge, and the storms are its hammer. Every bolt of lightning, every downpour, every crash of thunder shapes the land and everything that dares to live upon it. Night falls slowly in the Carboniferous swamp. The sun disappears behind the thick canopy, and the light fades from gold to green to black. The air stays heavy and warm, filled with the smell of wet bark, mud, and smoke. The forest doesn't go silent when darkness comes. It changes rhythm. The sounds of day, buzzing wings and dripping water, shift into a chorus of clicks, ripples, and distant calls. This is when the creatures of the night take control. The swamp comes alive with voices that don't belong to mammals or birds, but to insects and amphibians, each one broadcasting its presence into the dense air. Giant crickets sing by rubbing their wings together, their stridulation echoing through the mist. The sound is deep and rhythmic, a pulse that carries far in the thick, oxygen-rich atmosphere. Frogs the size of dogs croak from hidden pools, their voices vibrating through the ground. Every sound is a message, a warning, or an invitation. Some creatures use it to attract mates, others to claim territory, and some to lure prey. The darkness in this world isn't quiet or empty. It's a conversation that never ends. Beneath the surface of the black water, hunters wait. Amphibians with broad heads and wide mouths sit motionless, feeling the tiny ripples that travel across the water. A single movement, a struggling insect, a falling leaf, is enough to trigger the strike. Their eyes barely move, but their bodies react instantly. In the dim light, sight means little. Here, survival depends on vibration, smell, and sound. Every sense is heightened because in the carboniferous night, you never see danger coming. Sometimes, faint light flickers between the trees, not from the moon, but from embers left behind by the last fire. The world's high oxygen makes every spark dangerous. Even the smallest flame can grow, and the forest knows it. Creatures avoid the glow instinctively, watching from a safe distance as the orange reflections shimmer across pools of still water. Smoke drifts low, mixing with mist until the two are indistinguishable. The night glows faintly in places, the ghosts of old fires still smouldering under layers of ash. The forest breathes in this light. Moths flutter toward it, drawn by heat, their wings shining for a heartbeat before they vanish into the smoke. Above the canopy, giant dragonflies glide silently, hunting by touch and pressure, their wings catching faint glimmers of starlight, filtered through haze. On land, small reptiles slip between roots, their scales glinting wet in the dimness as they hunt for insects bold enough to sing too loudly. Life doesn't sleep here. It just slows, moves quieter, hides deeper. Every sound and flicker of movement is part of a living pattern, a rhythm shaped by danger and adaptation. The carboniferous night is thick and ancient, filled with whispers and distant flames. It's a place where the air hums with tension, where the world feels close enough to touch, and every breath reminds you that this planet is alive, even when the light is gone. The carboniferous forest never truly dies. Even when trees fall, even when roots rot and leaves decay, the forest keeps building on itself, layer by layer, century after century. The air smells of wet soil and resin. Beneath your feet, the ground is soft and spongy, made from generations of plants that never fully disappeared. This is a world before true decay, a time when death moves slowly. The towering lycopsids and ferns grow fast and die often, but when they fall, they don't crumble into dust. Instead, they sink into the swamps, their trunks preserved in waterlogged mud where oxygen cannot reach. Without oxygen, there is no fire, no rot, only slow transformation. The fallen trees pile up like bones, layer upon layer of ancient wood. Over time, the weight presses them down into peat, thick and dark, holding the carbon that once flowed through living leaves. In the modern world, fungi and bacteria would break all this down in months, maybe years, returning the carbon to the air. But in the Carboniferous, something is missing. The world has not yet evolved the right kind of fungus to eat lignin, the tough compound that gives wood its strength. Lignin is the armor of plants, and in this era, it's almost indestructible. The forest produces it endlessly, and nothing can destroy it, so the wood stacks higher, pressing deeper into the swamp floor. As millions of years pass, heat and pressure squeeze these layers into something new coal. The very fires that will one day power human civilization are being born here, in the silent darkness, under ancient roots. The smell of rot still fills the air, but it's the wrong kind of decay. Without the right fungi, the process never finishes. The swamps turn into vast carbon traps, sealing away more carbon than any future ecosystem ever will. The air above remains rich with oxygen because the balance is broken. Plants keep producing it, but not enough carbon is returning to the atmosphere. The world breathes unevenly, exhaling more than it inhales. It's a slow imbalance that changes everything. Eventually, the fungi begin to catch up. Around the end of the Carboniferous, new species appear white rot fungi, armed with enzymes that can finally break lignin apart. With them, true decay arrives. The wood that once lasted for centuries begins to vanish faster. Carbon returns to the air, the oxygen levels start to drop, and the world edges toward a new balance. The coal-forming era comes to an end. But for millions of years before that, the planet was quietly storing its own history underground. Every layer of coal we mine today is a fossilized forest, the memory of a time when the Earth could not clean up after itself. The Carboniferous world glowed with oxygen because it was choking on its own success. Forests ruled the land, but their deaths built the foundation for our modern world, turning slow rot into black stone and ancient breath into buried fire. If you could look at Earth 310 million years ago, it wouldn't look familiar. The continents are not scattered across the globe like they are today. They are gathering, slowly drifting toward each other, forming the foundations of a single supercontinent. To the north sits Euramerica, a patchwork of swamps, rivers, and shallow seas stretching across what will one day become North America and Europe. To the south lies Gondwana, a vast landmass covered in ice, its white plains stretching nearly to the equator. Between them, the equatorial belt is green and steaming, wrapped in forests that never end. This is a planet caught between fire and frost. The air above the swamps shimmers with heat and moisture, while the poles lock more and more water into glaciers that grow each year. The climate swings wildly. Oceans shift, coastlines retreat, and new rivers carve through ancient forests. Low carbon dioxide keeps global temperatures cooler than they should be, even under skies bursting with oxygen. The same plants that flood the air with oxygen are stripping carbon dioxide from it, throwing the atmosphere off balance. Ice builds up in Gondwana because of it, trapping more of the planet's water and dropping sea levels across the world. The swamp belts shrink, exposing new land. Rivers twist and dry, leaving behind vast fields of peat and sand. The air over the equator stays warm, but the currents that once carried heat toward the poles begin to falter. The ocean becomes a maze of cold and warm layers, each one shaping where life can thrive. In some regions, shallow seas turn into stagnant pools, where oxygen barely reaches the bottom. In others, new coastlines form, filled with strange new habitats. The creatures that live in these zones adapt fast or vanish completely. Amphibians retreat to wetter ground. Reptiles venture inland, testing the drier edges of the shrinking forests. The great lycopsid trees, once rulers of the swamp, begin to fade. Their shallow roots can't survive as the ground dries and sea levels fall. New plants rise to take their place, seed ferns and early conifers, tougher and better suited for the changing world. The Carboniferous Earth is reshaping itself in slow motion, but the effects are massive. Every glacier that grows sends ripples through the planet's ecosystems. Every drop in sea level changes the course of evolution. The forests that once stretched endlessly across Euramerica now exist in broken patches, islands of green surrounded by dry uplands. Fires spread more easily, feeding on air thick with oxygen. Storms grow more violent as pressure differences between ice and tropics intensify. This world map is alive, moving, unstable. It's a planet in transition, shifting from the swampy paradise that built the coal beds to something colder, drier, and less forgiving. Yet, even as the continents close in and climates twist between extremes, life finds a way to follow. The Earth is already preparing for its next chapter, one where forests give way to deserts and the age of reptiles begins to rise from the mud. Beneath the stormy skies of the Carboniferous world, the seas tell a different story. While the forests burn and regrow endlessly on land, the oceans remain calm, vast blue fields of life stretching from the equator to the poles. These are the seas of crinoids and sharks, a world where coral reefs shimmer with motion and the water is alive with predators. Sunlight filters through warm shallows filled with towers of limestone built by the slow work of tiny organisms. The seafloor is covered in forests of crinoids, creatures that look like flowers but are animals, their feathery arms waving gently in the current. They anchor themselves to the seafloor on long stalks and sway in rhythm, catching bits of food drifting past. Around them glide brachiopods, trilobites, and sea lilies, all feeding in slow motion while the tides whisper across a world in balance. But not all is peace in these waters. The real rulers of the sea are the sharks. They have exploded into dozens of new forms, filling every niche imaginable. Some are long and eel-like, gliding silently through reefs. Others are built for speed, with sleek bodies and mouths lined with serrated teeth. There are giants longer than a bus, slow-moving filter feeders that open their mouths wide to swallow clouds of plankton. And then there are the hunters, fast and agile, capable of taking down anything that moves. Their skeletons, made of cartilage instead of bone, make them light and flexible. In a world of high oxygen and warm water, they can move without rest, their gills drinking in the ocean's breath. It's an era of abundance. The shallow seas of Euramerica are warm and rich, dotted with carbonate platforms where life builds itself into stone. Every reef hums with motion. Every current carries eggs, spores, and drifting shells. Above, the land breathes flame and smoke. But here, the air's oxygen becomes the ocean's gift, fueling ecosystems that grow endlessly upward. The connection between land and sea is constant. Rivers pour nutrients from the coal swamps into the ocean, feeding algae blooms that paint the surface green. When storms hit the coast, they tear apart the shallow reefs, scattering shells and coral fragments that later fuse into limestone. Each cycle of destruction builds new ground for life to claim. Yet even here, change is coming. The drop in carbon dioxide and the cooling of the planet begin to affect the seas. Ice forming on Gondwana locks away water, lowering sea levels and exposing reefs to the air. Whole ecosystems dry and crumble, their inhabitants stranded. The sharks adapt first. They always do. Their teeth and bodies evolve faster than almost anything else alive. New designs appear in every generation, each one sharper, faster, more efficient. The ocean remains their kingdom, but the balance is shifting. The crinoid fields thin, the reefs retreat, and the shallow seas shrink back from the continents. What remains are traces of a world that once shimmered like glass under a sun that never tired, a world where the sea pulsed with life while the land burned above it. The fire age begins to fade. The sky that once shimmered with lightning and smoke starts to clear, and the heavy air that once fed flames and giants slowly thins. The world is drying out. The great coal swamps that once stretched across the equator are shrinking, replaced by forests of tougher plants and wide stretches of open ground. The age of 35% oxygen is ending. It doesn't happen overnight. The change takes millions of years, so slow that no creature living through it would ever notice. But the planet feels it all the same. The air that once felt alive with energy starts to calm. Fires become rarer, storms less frequent. The forests no longer burn with every spark. The planet is catching its breath. The reason for the change starts deep in the soil. For millions of years, plants ruled the earth without challenge. When they died, their bodies piled up faster than anything could eat them. Wood and bark stacked in layers that pressed into peat, then coal. Oxygen flooded the atmosphere while carbon was locked away underground. But nature doesn't leave an imbalance uncorrected for long. Evolution begins to solve the problem. New fungi appear, armed with enzymes capable of breaking down lignin, the tough compound that made ancient trees indestructible. For the first time, wood truly rots. The forests begin to recycle themselves. Dead trees that once lasted for centuries vanish in months. The carbon that had been trapped in their bodies returns to the air, mixing with oxygen, forming carbon dioxide again. The ratio shifts. The atmosphere begins to change. As the oxygen drops, the climate shifts too. The low carbon dioxide levels that once cooled the Earth begin to rise again, melting some of the southern ice and changing ocean currents. The great storms that had powered the Carboniferous swamps lose their force. Rain becomes less constant, rivers dry up. The lush equatorial wetlands start breaking apart into drier landscapes. Plants adapt by changing form. The massive lycopsids, those towering green columns of the swamp, vanish. Their shallow roots can't handle the new world. Seed ferns and early conifers take over, spreading into uplands that were once bare. Their seeds can travel farther, their bark resists heat, and their roots reach deeper for water. They are the architects of the new earth, one that no longer depends on constant rain. The animals follow. Amphibians retreat to the remaining wetlands, while reptiles, with their waterproof eggs and dry skin, take over the open ground. The balance between fire and life begins to settle. The forests no longer ignite with every strike of lightning. The air is still breathable, still rich, but no longer a fuel. The oxygen peak that turned the world into a slow-burning furnace is over. The Carboniferous age is closing, leaving behind the coal seams that will one day fuel another kind of fire. The earth exhales, and the age of flame gives way to the age of dust and bone, where the seeds of the next great rain, the reptiles, will take root and rise. The evidence for the Carboniferous world isn't just theory. It's buried beneath our feet, locked inside the rocks, black seams, and fossilized wings that tell the story of an atmosphere gone wild. When we dig into the ground today, we're not just uncovering coal, we're uncovering proof that the planet once breathed fire. The first clue comes in the form of charcoal. You find it everywhere in Carboniferous rocks, thin black layers sandwiched between sheets of sandstone and shale. These aren't from campfires or volcanoes, they're from forests that burned themselves. Only an atmosphere rich in oxygen over 30% can ignite wet wood and keep it burning. Every time a tree fell and lightning struck, the world lit up. The charcoal left behind became the fingerprints of those ancient fires. Scientists call them fusane, a pure carbon residue that preserves even the fine structure of leaves and bark. Under a microscope, you can still see the cell walls, polished and shiny, frozen in their final moment before the flames turned them to glass. Those layers of fossil charcoal are geological receipts for an atmosphere turned up to 11. They prove that fire wasn't an accident. It was a feature of life on Earth. The second clue lies in soot. In ancient sediments that once formed the bottoms of rivers and swamps, scientists have found microscopic carbon particles, tiny black grains left by smoke that drifted through the air and settled across the planet. They show up in deposits from every continent, from what is now North America to Europe to China. The pattern is unmistakable. Fire was global, the air was flammable, and the earth itself was wrapped in smoke. But maybe the most striking evidence of all are the fossils of the creatures that lived in that heavy, oxygen-rich atmosphere. The wings of giant dragonflies, almost a meter wide, preserved so perfectly that you can see the veins like threads of glass. The segmented armor of Arthropleura, the titan millipede, still imprinted in ancient mud. The remains of scorpions and centipedes, the size of house cats, preserved in the layers between coal beds. These fossils don't just tell us what lived, they tell us what was possible. The sheer size of these animals wouldn't work in our modern air. They needed more oxygen to power their bodies. The rocks themselves confirm it. In the trapped air bubbles of ancient amber and salt, traces of the old atmosphere remain, showing oxygen levels far above today's 21%. Even the chemistry of iron in the rocks changes, reacting differently when the air is thick with oxygen. All of it fits together into a single picture. A world that burned brighter, breathed faster, and lived larger than ours. Every piece of coal, every trace of soot, every oversized wing and leaf fossil is a page from that story. The Earth itself is the witness. Its layers are the record of a time when life pushed the atmosphere to its limit and the sky caught fire in response. Imagine stepping out of your house and taking your first breath in a world with 35% oxygen. The air feels alive, almost electric. Every inhale hits your chest like cold fire. For a moment it feels incredible, like you've never really breathed before. Your body floods with energy. Your heart pounds faster, muscles feel stronger, and your thoughts sharpen, but that rush doesn't last. Within minutes, the same air that feels like life starts to burn you from the inside out. Oxygen, at that concentration, is too powerful for us. It makes every cell work overtime. Your lungs absorb more oxygen than your blood can handle. Your heart races to keep up, and your brain begins to feel light and hot. You'd grow tired quickly, your energy burning out as fast as it builds. Even resting would feel like sprinting. The world itself would be both breathtaking and dangerous. Fire would be everywhere. A dropped spark from a stove, a struck match, even static electricity could ignite fabrics or hair. Cotton, wool, and linen would burn like dry leaves. Synthetic materials would melt in seconds. You couldn't light a candle indoors without risking an explosion. Buildings would need to be made of metal, stone, or clay, and even then, the smallest fire could spread too fast to control. People would live in fear of heat. Cooking would have to happen underwater or in sealed chambers. Cigarettes, engines, and open flames would be outlawed by necessity. In that world, breath itself is fuel. Your voice would sound strange too. In denser air, sound travels differently. Speech would come out deeper, slower, and more resonant. Every word would vibrate in your throat like a drum. Even breathing would be audible, a soft hiss of air filling your lungs too quickly. The atmosphere would feel thick on your skin, heavy and wet, like breathing through silk. Just walking would take effort. Your body would heat up faster, and sweat would cling to you, refusing to evaporate. Doctors in this world would face an entirely new kind of medicine. Oxygen toxicity would be constant. Breathing too deeply for too long could scar the lungs or damage the nervous system. Patients would need oxygen filters, machines that thin the air before it reaches the body. Hospitals might keep rooms filled with nitrogen-rich gas to help people recover from breathing too much of the outside world. Aging might happen faster. Constant oxidative stress would wear down cells, causing wrinkles and organ damage early in life. People would need diets filled with antioxidants just to stay alive. Even the simplest task, running, working, or climbing, would feel like pushing your body to its limit. And yet, there would be advantages. Wounds would heal faster. Muscles would recover in hours instead of days. Endurance athletes would be almost superhuman, at least until their bodies broke down from the strain. Humanity could survive here, but not comfortably. It would be like living inside a slow fire, every breath both keeping you alive and burning you down one heartbeat at a time. Building technology in a world with 35% oxygen would feel like trying to invent civilization inside a powder keg. Every spark, every friction, every breath of heat would be a threat. Fire would no longer be a tool. It would be a force that constantly wants to escape, a living thing waiting for an excuse to devour everything. The first engineers in this world would have to rethink what progress means. Combustion, the foundation of industry, would be far too dangerous to use the way we do now. Engines running on gasoline or oil would explode the moment they started. Even small engines would burn themselves out instantly, the flames spreading faster than the metal could handle. Internal combustion would have to be replaced by something safer, something that could control oxygen instead of feeding it. Steam power might return as the dominant technology, but even steam would need to be handled carefully. Boilers would ignite if oxygen leaked inside, and coal fires would have to be burned underwater or in sealed chambers. Whole cities would run on energy drawn from chemical batteries, water pressure, or magnetic induction, anything that doesn't require open flame. Metallurgy would face the same challenge. Smelting ore in this atmosphere would be a nightmare. Metal would oxidize almost instantly, turning to brittle scales before it could even be shaped. Blacksmiths would work in sealed, low-oxygen workshops, wearing suits that control what they breathe. Furnaces would run on carefully rationed gas mixtures, monitored by sensors to keep the flame from turning into a runaway inferno. The art of forging would become a science of containment. Firefighters would be the most important workers on Earth. Entire industries would exist just to keep cities from burning. Streets would be made of stone and metal, buildings coated in flame-retardant minerals, and every home would have oxygen scrubbers to keep air inside from reaching dangerous levels. Even cooking food would become an act of precision, done inside sealed glass ovens filled with controlled gas. The color of flame would change too. In a high-oxygen world, fires burn white-hot, brighter and louder than anything we know. A candle wouldn't flicker gently. It would hiss like a torch, the flame so intense it could melt glass. Welding would be almost impossible without specialized suits. The glow of industry would look like a city on fire. Technology would adapt to this intensity. Engines might evolve into systems that use pressure and magnetism instead of combustion. Electricity would dominate sooner, driven by the need to eliminate open flame. Even air itself would become a controlled resource, filtered and managed by machines to prevent over-oxygenation. The world would sparkle with energy, but tremble under its own volatility. In this version of Earth, invention would mean restraint. Every discovery would carry a whisper of danger. Humanity would learn to survive, not by mastering fire, but by constantly outsmarting it, building a civilization of brilliance, balanced delicately against the breath of a planet that burns too easily. The Carboniferous world is long gone, its forests buried, its giants turned to stone, its oxygen-rich sky thinned to something gentler, but its breath never really left us. The air we breathe today is a descendant of that ancient atmosphere, a legacy shaped by the rise and fall of oxygen over millions of years. Every inhale carries a memory of that era, when fire ruled the forests and life ran on overdrive. The high oxygen of the Carboniferous didn't just change the world, it sculpted the rules of life itself. It built bodies capable of power and speed, creatures that could grow massive and move with precision. It forced evolution to push metabolism to the edge, teaching cells how to manage energy and survive under pressure. The enzymes that protect your body from oxidative stress, the systems that balance breath and heartbeat, the very chemistry that fuels your brain, all trace their origins to that ancient challenge of too much oxygen. Life learned, then, that power always comes with a cost. The forests of that time reshaped the Earth in a way no ecosystem ever has. Their towering trunks and shallow roots built the first global carbon machine, pulling carbon dioxide from the air and locking it underground. They cooled the planet, thickened the air, and fed fires that burned for weeks at a time. Those same trees, when they fell and failed to rot, became the coal that powered human civilization hundreds of millions of years later. Every light bulb that flickers on, every city that glows at night, runs on the ghosts of those swamps. Fire itself, the most human of forces, began there. Without a world of flame, without an atmosphere that taught life to fear and respect combustion, we might never have learned to control it. The creatures of that era lived in the tension between breath and blaze, and so do we. The oxygen they made shaped not only ecosystems but behaviors. It encouraged movement, competition, and intelligence. It made life faster and more responsive. Every predator that evolved sharper senses, every prey that learned to run, every brain that began to think ahead, all owe something to the abundance of air that once filled the sky. Even after the oxygen come down, when levels dropped and the world cooled, the lessons remained written in DNA. Evolution kept the tools forged in that furnace. Humanity itself inherited them. We walk upright because lungs once needed to stretch further. We think fast because brains evolved to survive a volatile atmosphere. And we burn with curiosity because our ancestors once lived in a world that rewarded quick thinking. The Carboniferous Age was more than an era. It was the Earth's great experiment with breath, a time when the planet learned how much life it could handle. When you breathe in today, you're part of that story. The same molecule that passed through the lungs of giant dragonflies, through forests that reach the clouds, now fills your chest. Oxygen gave us the power to rise, to build, to dream, and to destroy. It is both the spark and the silence. The breath that forged us never stopped shaping what comes next.